Death by PowerPoint. So appreciate you guys coming out. Jeremy Henderson is one of Charleston's newest residents by way of San Francisco, and I'm always amazed when I meet these guys from away because they really bring great experience, great talent. So I'll jump to who he's worked for, and then I'll kind of fill in the gaps. But he's worked for Razorfish, he's worked for companies like VeriSign, worked for eBay, and worked for Salesforce. These are serious companies around the country with a huge footprint, so it's great. But Jeremy's, I met him basically, and I was sitting there then, like 6 minutes in the presentation of something that lasted an hour. I guess I engaged with him, like I could think, man, he's got to be the presentation. He's got to be. And every time I tried to bring it up, he was like going on, and I was like, by the time we got to the end of it, it was like, we're doing one. So he agreed to do it, so that's why we're here. But he's passionate, I guess, about creating happy, healthy workplaces, which ultimately makes companies more productive and such. And I thought this was unusual. He's got a super LinkedIn profile. And so I went back, and by everything he's got, basically these comments, people give you kind of endorsement, if you would. So I said, I'm just going to read 3 endorsements. There's this woman author who says, Jeremy's an exceptional leader with great knowledge and flexibility. Then you got Eric who says, Jeremy's an exceptional talent development leader with deep academic as well as applied expertise in employee engagement. And then the third woman, Candy, she says, Jeremy's a strategic and creative employee engagement professional with far-reaching business knowledge that he brings together to drive results on projects that have massive business impact. What was impressive for me is he can talk about basically the theoretical side of things and the practical side, which we all want the practical side. How does this translate into my bottom line? So without further ado, Jeremy Henderson.
Thank you, everybody. I dressed up for you today, but I'm pretty casual, as a lot of folks kind of in the technology industry are, right? Kind of chill. Should wear my jeans. Anyway, thanks for coming out today. It's exciting to me to get to see folks from Charleston and having an interest in talent. Hiring people is probably the number one, not probably, it is the number one most important thing that any business is ever going to do. It's hiring people. It's not going out and finding some money to fund your company. It's not hiring the CEO or being the CEO or finding a CEO or being the COO, it's hiring people, right? Because it's the people who actually are going to drive the success of your business. Humans are 80% emotional and 20% rational. Does that seem weird? How many engineers do we have in here? Do you guys think you're emotional or rational?
When I'm screaming at my computer, I would say emotional.
Good. Yeah, we all are, actually. We're all 80% emotional and 20% rational. Which means when we bring people into our organization, we hire them, we engage them, maybe we transition them out, we actually have to motivate them emotionally and then give them this really clear path forward to actually achieve the business result that they're looking for. All of this can be done with a talent strategy. Anybody working on talent strategies in your organization? People Matters? Who else? What is the company?
Agile Advantage.
Agile Advantage. Talent strategy. So, by the way, how many people? Raise your hand up high. We have 3 people. Look around. 3 companies, 3 groups working on talent strategies. How many of you have organizations that want to grow? Anybody have organizations that want to grow? Yours doesn't want to grow?
I'm my own organization, but yes, I would like to grow.
You would like to, okay. So talent strategies, whether you're a single person in a company or 5 million people in a company, are incredibly important because they give you the path, the map forward, just like you would have with a product strategy, right? But it all starts with people. So there are some, and by the way, got a question, just pop in, let me know where you're at. If something doesn't make sense, challenge me, happy to debate a little with you as well. Talent strategies are not just about recruiting. Oh, we need a really good recruitment campaign. We need to have the best color blue in People Matters that you could ever possibly have because people love blue. We need to have this really great picture of our people volunteering. That'll really bring them in, won't it? Because then they get to your organization and the culture that you're portraying in your recruitment campaign actually doesn't match what's going on. They don't match the terrible managers we have, the leaders who don't pay attention or who could care less about what's going on around them, right? So talent strategies are important. And ironically, there are a few parts of it. I'm just going to kind of fill in some blanks here. Your community is very, very important. Very important. Down here we'll call this operations, which are things like HRIS and your benefits and your compensation and other stuff that is about keeping the lights on, your price of admission, right? You have to keep some information on your people. You've got a section out here called alumni, people who left your company, no longer around. You really don't care about them, do you? How many people really usher people out quickly and just forget about them? Every company does. There are very, very few who actually keep people engaged after they leave your business. But if you have a product company, you might want them to buy something from you someday, huh? Kind of important. Then you've got this piece out here, which is hiring. And then you've got engagement. I would tell you that these are the elements of your talent strategy, right? So it would be common to think that you start right here in hiring, right? You start right here. If we're going to develop a talent strategy, we got to know how to hire. Everyone agree with that? How do you know who to hire? Well, we need to have a mobile device, and we know that there's Android, and we know that there's OIS. We got to actually have two different types of, we have to have developers, right? So that's what they do. Who are they? So you have to look inside of your organization to engagement. There's this shameless self-promotion, right? There's this great book you can get on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, and other places called The Human Relations Matrix. But just skip to the back. There's a little model of engagement back here. There are some strategic tactics that go along the top, and there are some strategic levers, as I say, and there are some tactical levers that go along the side. Strategically, we have this thing called leadership. Leadership itself, let me just ask, who has an idea about leadership? What leadership really is? What does it mean? Anybody have an idea? It's a really tough one to answer. It really is. Because today, our HR folks in the world, I'm one of them, will come out and tell you, well, leaders, they will listen to people. And leaders lead from the front. Leaders lead from the back. Leaders lead situationally. You've heard all these things, right? So what's a leader? We run around chasing these kind of ideas and concepts without really understanding leadership and business. So we first have to understand our strategy and have a strategy, a business strategy, right? And then we have this thing over here that a lot of HR people call values. I call them behaviors. How you act, what you do and how you act at work, for the business, right? The intersection of those two things then, in this model, is leadership. So it means far less about who is sitting there. I'm the CEO, so I have the strategy and I have these behaviors, but then I do everything contrary to that. But I'm still the CEO, so I must be right? Leadership is the intersection between strategy and behaviors. You know what you're going to do, and you know how you're going to behave when you do that, right? The next piece here is decision making. If you guys can read my writing, bless you. Decision making. If you know what you're going to do and how you're going to behave, then you know how to make a decision. It's pretty clear. We know what we're going to do. We know the way that we behave in achieving that, so we know how to make a decision. The next is your organizational social structure. Your organizational social structure is two parts. There is this formal organizational social structure in business, which is often called management hierarchy, right? How we all report into other people. Everybody's got a boss, doesn't matter who you are in business, everybody's got a boss. And today those, and in particularly the technology industry, those have very little meaning. For organizations that have made a decision based on their strategy to produce their product, their service, in an agile development methodology approach, format, what's the right word there? And you have a really strict management hierarchy, there's an inconsistency between the decisions that you've made and how your company is designed, right? So when you have inconsistencies here, or you have inconsistencies here, credibility goes away, doesn't it? And then everybody looks around and they say, man, that CEO, that leadership team, they just don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand how we do the work that we do, right? Are these common things that pop up for you in your career at some point? The final piece then is what we call communication, communication. Again, writing is my strong point. Communication. This is what we're gonna say and how we're gonna listen, strategically. Then along the side here, you've got these things called programs, systems, training, and communication again. This is communication tactically. It's actually the tactics that you use to communicate. As an organization, we're going to use an email. I'm going to send you an email. You're going to respond to my email. We never have to see each other in person. I can sit here behind this computer, not even talk to one person. I might even text you, and you're right there, right? And we do that with their spouse? I do. It's like, oh, you're upstairs. I don't want to walk up those stairs. So I gave you this model, and we're going to talk about some of these intersections here that are really important for a talent strategy in just a minute. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to bring you back to hiring. Because we go back to hiring now. If we know our strategy and how we're going to behave, we can figure out how to hire. We know what we need to go out and do. Let's say your strategy as a startup organization, a small organization, a one-person organization. Let's say it's 6 months, 3 months. If you don't have a strategy, start developing a strategy. What are you there for? What's your purpose? What are you going to go and do? Liz Guthridge is here, and Liz and I have known each other for a very long time now.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how long. We met at Salesforce.com. She came in and helped us do some work there. And later, when I went to Aerosint, which is a company I just recently left as their Vice President of People Matters, Liz came in and helped us do more work. And Liz asked our CEO a really good question. And everybody on the phone was like, why is she asking this question? She said, what is your purpose? Why does this business exist? And everyone was like, oh, you asked the CEO that? Changed everything. Changed everything. I don't know if you ever got that feedback. It changed everything. Really good question. Really good question. I think it was probably for the next 3 months, all I heard was, the purpose of Aerosint is to, right? This is what we do. This is why we exist. Her words, he picked up on real quickly. And our CEO is the former number 2, number 3 of IBM, right? Big guy, important guy, great guy. Changed his perspective. So you get into this idea of hiring. If you know what your strategy is, what you're going to do, why you exist, and you know what your behaviors are, you can map out what you're going to do. Anybody have a product map, a service map, right? What's next? What are you going to do? We've created a website. This is the service that we're providing. The next step for us is to go mobile. Let's pretend.
So, sorry to interrupt your train of thought there, but behaviors. So, give an example of how you stipulate what your behaviors are, because to me that intersection seems more like how does my behavior actually align with the strategy? It's not like you plan to behave a particular way, you actually behave a particular way. So, do you have any examples of how you actually kind of put bullet points to that?
Sure. Anybody hear of I think it's the no a-hole rule, the no jerks rule? Let's use jerks. We'll use jerks? Let's use jerks. The no jerks rule. Everybody hear about that? So, is it Google? Is that Google? I think
Don't
it's
be
Google.
evil.
Don't be evil. So there are people in business who will develop a strategy that is completely about them as a person and not about the business, the product, the people around them, nothing, right? It's just about them. They're building a product just for themselves. So if you have a behavior that kind of says teamwork, everything you do in your strategy is going to be done by a team, not by an individual. Jerry Elliott's the former chief sales officer at Juniper. Everybody know Juniper? You know Juniper? Do you know Jerry?
My wife worked for her for years.
Okay,
Yep.
who's your wife?
Jen Pulsifer.
I don't know the name, but now I'm going to look her up on LinkedIn. Jerry's awesome, right? We agree? Jerry is awesome. I was doing some work with her, and she said, you know, Jeremy, those who succeed, succeed together, and those who fail, fail alone. So if you have if your behavior is teamwork, that means everything that you're going to do within your strategy is never done singularly by one person, right? There was, who said don't hire brilliant jerks? That was all over recently. I always forget who says these things. I'm really good at remembering who says things. I never know the artist who sang a song, but I can sing the lyrics. And never count on me for a saying. They're always going to be wrong. Anyway, but they said never hire brilliant jerks, right? The idea is that within the technology industry, truly, we have tons of brilliant people who do not have the social skills to bring their brilliance to life, right? Humans require social skills. We're all social beings. That's exactly what it is, right? So if your behavior is teamwork and you've got brilliant jerks who are just poking holes, hot pokers at everybody, your strategy is never actually going to get there. Or it's going to get there much slower, right? You're not going to be able to accelerate. So it really depends on what you set out to do. What are the behaviors that you need to be able to do that? What happens in business primarily, and this is, I think, a mistake of my industry, of the human resources world that I would probably fall into, although I kind of try not to, is this. All of a sudden someone will say, we need values. We need values in our organization. Well, I have my own set of values. You have yours. You've got values, right? We all have values. We can agree. My values are very personal to me. They're virtues. I bet a lot of us have shared values, actually. But the values don't actually matter to the strategy. My values individually don't matter to the strategy. It's how I behave with everyone around me that is going to help me get this done. Any clear?
Yeah, I guess in my experience, it may be a difficult effort to start with, this is what I want our values to be. It's probably more fruitful to just ask people who may be lower in the organization, what do you think our values are?
Okay, what is your name?
Rob.
Hi, Rob. I'm Jeremy. Good to meet you. He gets an A for today. Everyone give Rob a big round of applause. Exactly. If you have a strategy, you're the CEO, let's say. You've got a strategy. How are you going to get that done? You got to ask people, how are we all going to behave together? It's exactly what you need to be doing. And it doesn't matter what level. Everyone in an organization has got to agree to a set of behaviors. This is how we're going to do it. It's the leaders who are responsible for stewarding the strategy and the behaviors. If your leaders are out there saying, this is how we behave, and this is what we're going to do, but yet they behave completely differently, the credibility is gone. I'm going to pause on credibility for a second. The human mind forms credibility in one of two ways. Anybody ever heard this before? Is it new? By what you see, right? I look at you, you're credible. I wore this shirt and these pants and this belt and these shoes because I thought you'd go, wow, he's actually kind of dressed nicely. He might be credible. That's for half of you. The other half of you, all the engineers in the room, they're like, I don't really care what you wore. It really is going to be, I'm going to judge your credibility totally based on what you said. And the companies you work for, and if they're successful, and how many times you stumble with your words. All right? Right. It's a difference. Sales and marketing folks, it's all about what you look at. Engineers primarily will judge you over time, and harshly, right? So if you know your strategy and you know your behaviors, you know what you're gonna do and how you're gonna get that done. And everybody in your organization has an understanding about that.
So, question. Spent most of my career very heavily in and around technology. And in this scenario, the challenge I've seen is talent always wins. If you're a hotshot engineer, you get the job. And you can treat people like shit.
Yep,
And you can show up late to work if you're the really good guy and everyone's like, well, Adam can do it or whoever.
yeah,
So how do you go against that in a high tech, if we're hiring a product guy, I'd love to get a nice person that I really like,
yeah.
that's nice, that's fun to be around and good culture, but I need the most talented guy. And every company I've been at, the talent always wins.
It's a great question. This is gonna be the strategy of most organizations, right? They're gonna say, we're gonna actually tolerate brilliant jerks because we can get things done. What that one person will likely do is push out 10, 20, particularly developers, right? Technologists don't deal with that kind of stuff. They're like, you want this person who can do maybe a third more than me, and you think they're brilliant because they're just really loud and they're really like in your face about what's happening. And then those of us who aren't technologists, we're like, oh my gosh, that person must be right. They must be right. They're really loud. They found all these holes. What are we gonna do? And then they push them out, right? All these other people, and then they're left being like still the hot shot because all the good people left, and then we still have to. So it depends about how much you're gonna tolerate it.
Well, that's kind of standard, Jeremy, for for a startup. I've worked for startups for 20 years. I mean, in the beginning, it's all about technology. And, you know, the sales guy, you know, having to bring the client and say, listen, we're going into the client, don't talk condescending, talk right to them, you know, talk, when I point to you, say something that not, I mean, they just weren't very sociable people, but
Yeah.
from a technology standpoint, excellent.
Yeah.
And it had to
Very,
be,
very good
they
point.
had to be involved in the process.
That's
We had
right.
to tolerate them to grow the company.
Right. And probably in 5 years, when that product is really zooming,
Yes, I know where you're
they're
going.
out.
They're out, right.
right? So different people are gonna be right for your company at different times.
Yeah.
As a small organization that wants to move very quickly to market, you might tolerate someone and bite your tongue just to get it out there.
Usually happens,
It's gonna hurt you long-term,
yeah.
and it's gonna actually hurt them long-term as well. Because they're not gonna be the type of person, they're gonna get a reputation. There's a connection here, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a reputation in the market where people will say, I just can't stand working with this person at all.
So how do you condense your model there for a startup? Because most startups I've known with sub 50 people, that community box is more just to kind of do culture. The engagement box you have there is non-existent. The hiring is based on who you know, your Rolodex,
Yeah.
or the VC's referring to.
Right.
And ops is usually handled by the CFO or COO, there is no HR person.
Yeah, that's scary, isn't it?
It's usually the way it is.
Yeah, and that's okay, because your company, it's an accordion model. This is what I call an accordion model. These are levers, maybe that's another way, or dials. You can turn things up as you grow,
Yeah.
right? When you start, you might have just a few people, and you really need that brilliant jerk, and you're just gonna use them for a little bit of time.
Right.
I mean, let's just be honest about it. Do you wanna work with them for the rest of your life? Probably not. I worked with a startup in the Bay Area called Empath. They build mobile something, I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to give a pitch on their business, I just can't do it. It's the former CTO and CIO of Salesforce.com, right? And great guys, love them, they're just great. And what we found is that in hiring, you know, you might need that, you might put all of your money in the beginning into that brilliant jerk, right? They're gonna build the product, and they're probably not gonna be with you for long, as I said. You might then switch over to that brilliant marketing person who's really aggressive and really drives and brings you to market, but they might not be long-term, right? So when you think about your hiring, there are different scenarios in which you can bring people into your business. You don't have to bring in an employee.
Well, the startup is more like, you're right, they don't have to be there forever, but you need the melts from them while they're here, whether it's 12 months or 18 months.
That's right.
That's
That's exactly right. And the model that you use when you bring people in might be different. Let me explain this. You might just give someone a 6-month contract as a 1099 employee that might work from home. They might not even be in your office. They might be the best darn coder you've ever had or seen in your life and just can't possibly speak to someone else, right? You might come up with a different model so that you protect the culture that you're gonna have. At the end of the day, this is your culture you wanna grow into. This is incredibly important that you grow into it, but it is planned from the beginning. You have to plan it. What happens in organizations mostly is that cultures grow organically. And then kaboom, they have a crisis at 50 people, because at 50 people, there's a federal requirement from a legal point of view. Oh yeah, let's put law down here, that's a good one. There's a federal, piece, but more importantly, there's a social aspect that I've witnessed over time, that at 50 people, once you grow over it, you start losing, you go down to about 30, and you have to build that back up. It's because in the beginning, we didn't hire correctly for the 50 to get to 150 or to 500, right? Your core is really important, to have the core group that really work well together, considering the empath group. Their number one hiring objective was to hire people that they liked.
Yeah. See, I think the most important thing for a startup is that engagement piece, and it just comes too late, or they struggle with it, or they don't put anything in place.
And let's face it, engagement, how many of you know employee engagement? How many? We all do. Everybody does employee engagement. We all have ideas about it, right? Everybody. The reality is not a lot of us do it scientifically, and so there's some challenges socially that occur over time, because a lot of organizations today will call employee engagement giving you a volunteer time off benefit, which is great, it's part of it, but it's not employee engagement, right? When we think about employee engagement, I would like to suggest to you that you think about workplace productivity, not a happiness quotient, right? So when we get back here to hiring, hire your core when you're a startup. Hire your core. Get those people who are going to be with you till your next huge milestone, right? The big milestone. Not just the products developed, the big milestone. You launched, you're in the market. Who are those people that you need to actually get out there and be prominent and present and get attention? That brilliant jerk developer is going to be very, very important to you, but maybe only to a point. And then, by the way, you have to ask yourself, when I think about the brilliant jerks that we're talking about, do we trust them? Are they going to put stuff in our place that blows up on us if they're not there, right? So really find people that you trust, and that's where these behaviors come in. If you really understand how you need to behave to get out there, you're going to be able to build your strategy, to enact your strategy. You're going to have a far better opportunity for success. When you hire people who are not going to be successful with you over at least your first really big milestone, your company is going to have trouble over here, because it's too late then.
Well, the number one strategy is just cash flow. So cash flow overrides any jerks or anything like that. You got to get revenue coming in the door.
I would disagree with you.
Yeah, I disagree.
I understand.
In the startup world, that's everything.
I understand. I've worked in many startups myself. Three. One that became one of the top 3 digital agencies in the world.
Right.
Anyway, I understand. Cash flow is important, right? It is, absolutely. Seeing your books, being able to go out and actually show a positive cash flow to an investor that's actually going to give you some cash, right? Give you more money to get you there. Totally get it. Totally get it. Money's everywhere. It's everywhere. Particularly for the technology industry. It's everywhere. The people who are going to help you secure those dollars are actually more important. Right? Any other thoughts on that piece? Because it's a good...
So you said that company who only hired people they liked, you kind of got cut off, so that's the right way to go? Hire people that
I
you
think
like?
that it works really well for their strategy. One of their behaviors was to hire people that they really like. I personally agree with it, because I just don't like to work with people I don't like. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't like working with people I don't like. But that's where the behaviors come in. If everybody agrees that we're all going to behave in a certain way, it's a relationship contract, right? It's relationships. And I guess that's the point I haven't made, is that everything we do in business is about relationships. It's about people. right? I was, when I worked at VeriSign, was with the former CEO of VeriSign and I, brilliant guy, Stratton Sklavos. He's a VC. He's in the Bay Area. Come on, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. And he looked at me and said, you know, Jeremy, business is 100% about relationships. You're going to succeed or fail based on the relationships that you have. So even when we're battling this idea of the brilliant jerk, that person's going to fail over time. They're going to have a crisis in their own career at some time, and they're going to wake up and they're going to say, wow. I mean, I had my own. I was really one of those, I don't know if I was brilliant, but I was a jerk when I was in my young career. I thought I knew it all. I had it down. Now, the older I get, I'm like, man, I probably don't know anything. But the reality is, the older you get, I think the more we realize what we don't know.
At some point, could you maybe touch on things that you learned that are important in terms of generational differences between boomers, Gen X, and millennials?
Yeah, well, can I say something totally unpopular?
Sure.
Okay. I don't believe in any of this Gen X, millennial, blah, blah, blah stuff. There was research done, generationally speaking, that's pretty complex, but basically it says that there are always 4 generations in the workforce, and those 4 generations continually repeat, and they have the same exact characteristics, right? So just like, popular.
Isn't that saying the same thing, though? I mean,
it is. The difference, though, is that we are panicking about millennials. Oh my gosh, they need to bring their dogs to work. They really don't need to be at work. But yet they need to be over here. We need to be friends. We can't tell them anything. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. It's not new. And at the end of the day, they're humans. They're just humans. 80% emotional, 20% rational, right? So we panic around whatever the topic du jour is in business. And it's like 6-year-olds playing soccer. Anybody ever see 6-year-olds playing soccer? Right? The ball's over there and everyone runs to the ball. And then it's over there. Woo! Right? I mean, it's the same thing. And we do this in business all the time. So if we stand back and stand up and really survey what's happening, anything that's popular, I question. Maybe I am a developer.
but I mean, it's basically saying 22-year-olds are 22-year-olds and have always been 22-year-olds. So what if we are trying to bring a lot of 22 to 26-year-olds on board? Does that play into the strategy and the behavior and the leadership?
I think that it does. And it goes into this idea when you're hiring. Thanks, you just kind of transitioned us in a nice place. And this idea, aside from certain people are right for your company at certain times, this other piece of it, which is lifestyle and life cycle, which is important, right? So within your behaviors, if you know kind of what you want your lifestyle in your organization to be, I'll give you an example. Google is really good at keeping people at work, right? Right? We don't want you to go. We want you to stay here and develop. You want to put a camper in the parking lot at Facebook? You guys see that story in the news, right? About the guy who lives in his truck? And that was cool? Well, he's at work a lot. So what we're talking about here is that in different times of your life, different things are important to you, right? So when you graduate from college and you're going into the workplace, you're probably, 21, 22, 23, 24, maybe these days, who knows, maybe a little older. Work is your social outlet. You've got some friends, your college friends, but they might not be actually where you live anymore, right? So work becomes a social outlet. You meet the people that you might know for the rest of your life. I have friends. I worked at EDS, my very first job out of college. I worked at EDS. I still have friends from EDS all these years later, right? And then I kind of went out and traveled the world because I needed to do that, and moved to Europe, just did some crazy stuff, and it was great, really great. Came back to the United States, and was still kind of in my late 20s, and started to change a little bit, and started to get a little bit relationship oriented, and then all of a sudden you're like mid-30s, and you're like, whoa, I'm getting married? Ouch, how did that happen, right? And then you move it maybe into your late 30s and kind of our time, and all of a sudden kids start popping up, right? and then you bought a house, and work needs to fit into your life all of a sudden rather than work being your life. So generationally, it's important to understand just if you're looking at hiring more junior employees, because of course we would never target an age, that would be illegal. It's really important that you understand what they're experiencing in their life, rather than broad sweeping brush strokes about what a generation is.
What I see a lot is organizations fighting it, saying that's not the type of place I worked at, as opposed to using it and, you know.
Yeah. Hey, this is probably a lot of neuroscience kind of stuff, right, Liz? You know, in the sense that we as humans have an ability to either understand others or we don't, right? And there are a lot of folks who don't understand or can't conceive of the experiences that others have, and they're limiting themselves. And that's a limit in business that we're all going to run into. I know I run into it a lot, right? You're looking at the, you know, I guess I'm the hip guy. I'm way here now. I just had to stop myself. Anyway, you know, you're sitting there around the table, and you've got someone who's really, really proud of how that they're going to force everybody to wear, you know, a suit and tie to work every day because that's what they did when they were 20. Well, it just doesn't work anymore. That's not who we are. Our culture's evolved, right? It brings us to so it brings us back here to hiring. So, you know, certain people are right for certain companies at certain times. You've got to understand where you're at with your strategy, right? So you might need a lot more people doing lower level things, which means more junior employees. You should have then a college recruiting idea program, right? Another piece of this is employee referrals. If you know that you really like the people you work with, they probably have pretty good people around them too, right? So you ask them to bring in folks as well. It all starts though from your engagement model. This is what every business is missing. I've never seen a company that would ever admit that it all starts from their engagement model, and it does. And there are 4 key intersections that you have on engagement. It's strategic alignment. This is the fact that everyone in the organization understands the strategy, the behaviors, and their role in achieving it. Now, why would that be important to hiring someone coming right out of college?
Fighting it. So they're not fighting it subconsciously.
Yeah. Well, they're probably going to, because, you know, let's admit it, in our 20s we're a little bit like rebellious and stuff. Gosh, maybe that was just me at Razorfish, had purple hair, you'd never believe it, right? I know. But you want, one of the things that you want here is for people to have meaning in the work that they're doing. If everyone feels like they are an owner of the strategy, and we all agree to the behaviors that we're going to have, and we work as one group to do that, you will find meaning at work. When your leaders say one thing and do another, so they're lacking credibility, those folks who are coming right out of college are going to rebel very quickly because they're going to say, you told me one thing and it's not even like that. How does that even happen? How am I here? You lied to me in the recruiting process and I'm getting the heck out of here. And talent is important. You actually need to keep them, right? The next piece here is manager effectiveness. If you know how you are going, what your strategy is and your behaviors, then you have strong leadership. You can make good decisions. If you can make good decisions, you can have good managers. You've got to understand, managers have to understand what kind of decisions that they can make. But more importantly, they have to have a good relationship with the people that they're managing. This is something that we lost in the 80s. We had, remember that big economic downturn in the 80s? It was really bad, right? Really bad. And companies just stopped training managers to be managers of people. They train managers to be managers of quality and process. That's right. So today, we've got to focus on helping managers connect with humans in a human way. There's this other great book I'll tell you about. It's called Managing Success, A Manager's Guide to Effective Employee Relationship. You can find it on Amazon.com. The next piece is organizational social structures. If you can make good decisions, how you make decisions is going to tell you how your organization should be designed. If you know how you make decisions, you will know how your organization is meant to be designed. And here's why. If your managers can make a decision to just go ahead and put a new button into your product, just whenever they want, then you know that they need a certain type of team to support that decision, right? If your finance person is in control of all decisions, then your organizational social structure is probably going to be a very, very rigid 8 to 12 layer of approvals to get anything done. Anybody have that experience? I've had that experience. Your budget for your human stuff is probably going to go completely away, right? But collaboration today is incredibly important. If you know how your organization is designed, if you have a very strong management hierarchy because it's being run very militantly, you probably will have very little collaboration in your organization. This thing we call silos, right? Everybody's got these great big silos. You can be a company of 2 and have great big silos. You do this, I do this. We don't ever need to come together. Organizations, let's say, that are more on the agile development methodology approach, that is collaboration. You walk into a room, everybody's, the product manager, let's say, says, this is what we need to achieve. Everybody around the table says, this is what I'm going to do to help do that, make that possible. And then we go and do that. It's collaboration. It means you need more of a social. You need stronger social structures, which is where things, particularly when you're looking at the like younger professionals, more junior professionals, that's where things like, pizza, beer, parties, oyster frying, roast. Still not quite clear on that part yet. Thanks.
There's one on Saturday.
Okay.
Drop some names.
Every
Fine.
I'm in.
I was one of
Somewhere. That's collaboration. So if you know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, you know how to make a decision, that decision tells you how your organization is going to be designed, then you know what the communication process is. You're going to know who needs to hear what messages and when. And communication then will be relevant, unlike what happens today in many organizations where we have an intranet that just some stuff goes there and nobody ever goes to it except to maybe like click on some other application that they need, right, to jump off somewhere else. And that's going to leave you with your employer brand. Your employer brand, if you've designed this well in the beginning, is going to help you with hiring. You might not have every single, we're talking about this idea of some of these items being dialed up and dialed down. You might not have every one of those items fully engaged when you go out to recruit folks. But if you can tell them where you're going, what your plan is for the future of the business and when, then it's meaningful, right? Finally, so hiring leads you obviously to employee engagement. Employee engagement leads you to this alumni piece. We talked again about some people being right for a company at certain times. Has anybody ever left a job? Anybody? Oh, so we've all done that. Oh, that's good. Okay, good. So we've all done that. I've left a lot of them. Kind of often feel like I'm the Mary Poppins of employee engagement. You just kind of like go where you're needed. So we've all left a job. How many of you are still connected to the people of those companies? Some. You brought some friends along the way, right? How many of you are still connected to those companies? You buy from them? Yeah? Which one? Or ones?
In our research business, I buy from 2 former employees, or former companies.
And did you like it at those organizations?
One of them yes, one of them no.
Okay. Who else?
Boxing equipment company, like boxing.
Oh, like Kabam. Did you like them?
Some of them.
So, but you're still connected to the company because you're boxing.
Well, I'm buying from.
You're buying,
Fitness equipment.
you're buying fitness equipment, okay, good, cool, who else?
I guess I have to be connected to IBM somehow.
When I think about the companies that I have, worked at, and still have friends at, whether they're there or not, right? But you're still connected to the business, there are very few. You know, Salesforce.com is everywhere, so I'm still very connected to that business because when I work with, either as an employer or as a consultant, there's always some aspect of Salesforce.com. I have a lot of pride in my role of Chatter. You guys know Chatter maybe, the enterprise social networking tool there. There are, I'm trying to think back, what else? I mean, VeriSign, remember VeriSign, the check mark on the bottom of the page? That's now owned by Symantec, former client of mine as well. I feel a sense of pride when I see that little check mark in my role in VeriSign and what we did there. So there are very few companies that I still feel very connected to. I'll tell you, the alumni of VeriSign are still very, very, very connected. People all over the world went out and did other things. Everybody's very connected. It's very weird compared to any other business I've ever been in, right? It wasn't cutthroat. It was very much team. And there were some people, of course, there are always people you're not gonna like. I mean, that's just, the way it goes. And you didn't like me, and let's be honest. I'd be hard to take. But the reality is you have these connections with people and with businesses. And with those companies that you had some degree of a successful relationship with, you're probably gonna buy from them again. So as you're in a startup, a small business, you're a growing business, a one-person business, you might have people consult, come in and out, do contracts. It's important for you to treat your alumni really well. When you transition people out of an organization, you transition them with grace and dignity and respect, right?
The flip side is, if you left a company because you hated it, you can ask about how many people stay engaged with that company. How many people here now avoid working with that former company because of that disengagement?
Anybody? Yeah. You bring this point of, has anybody ever left their house after work? Like, you go to work and then you go home, and then maybe you go out with friends? Has anyone ever talked about their job? What about your manager? I don't see any hands. Managers? Anybody talk about their managers, their job, the company? How crazy they are? What the heck are they doing? Everything you do in your business seeps into the community. It seeps into the community. Everything. So as you grow your business, it is incredibly important for you to make sure that you are focused on talent and employee engagement, talent engagement in your business. You have to, everything you do, someone's gonna go home and talk about. It doesn't matter, you can tell them not to. I've seen that happen. You can tell them don't go on social media. I've seen that happen, never works. Never works, right? Doesn't matter what HR legal person standing in front of you telling you the rules on social media. Who cares about what's written down? What the real damage is at the dinner party, right? When you're talking about. So it's important as leaders that we get really clear on how this helps us grow our business. The more people we have talking about us positively, the better. Isn't it something like, I always get this wrong, isn't it like when you like something, you'll only tell 3 people, but if you really don't like something, you'll tell 7 people?
It's higher.
Is it higher, Liz?
Like 25.
Is it really? So the alumni that you have will also kind of come back into the community. But these alumni, remember how we talked about certain people being right for your organization at certain times? What you'll notice is that with these, with the folks you're talking about, the junior kind of folks, they're actually gonna be with you, they're gonna grow their career to a certain point, they're gonna be really ambitious, they're gonna go out to the next company because they wanna grow their career. If they stay with you, your growth rate might not be as great as what they can do if they come over here and grow their career. And who hasn't done that, by the way? Right? Everybody's done that, right? So they may go out, get some really good experience that is going to propel your business to the next level, and you want them back in a year, or 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. If you haven't engaged them and treated them well, they're never gonna come back to you, and you lost that free recruitment pool, right? So you keep them engaged. So down here, you see this idea that I haven't really touched on much, which is this operational stuff. You gotta have your operations set up to be able to support all of this. You know, you've gotta have the right hiring tools. It's not just posting a job on LinkedIn, there's a lot more to it. You know, you've gotta have the right strategic alignment campaign internally. You've gotta be able to not just have people sign up for goals. Everyone's done that, right? Oh boy, it's goal time, let's all write goals. Okay, that doesn't really help any of us. You know, you've got to be able to have tools for managers that are going to help. You've got to blah, 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 right? All the way across the board. So your operations are going to be the foundation for everything up here that you build. So that's what I would call a talent strategy, your people strategy. It all starts with leadership, which is the intersection of strategy and behaviors. It's going to tell you who to hire, when to hire, what profiles to hire, right? What types of people. You're going to bring them into your organization. You're going to have program systems, training, and communication that supports strategic alignment, manager effectiveness, collaboration, employer brand. That's going to lead you to an alumni organization, an external group that are all still really excited about your business. Everything you do seeps into the community, and you've got to have a foundation that's going to actually support your success over time. Questions?
Yeah. What do you do, so this is mostly about how you build something successfully from the start. What do you do if you realize you have two key managers or so who are actually really not a good idea to have? In terms of burning through people, doing other things that make this thing collapse.
Yeah. There are two things you can do in my mind. One is you can coach, train, engage them to change. I know very, very few people who have ever been taught to be a manager. I was blessed when I lived in Europe to work for the executive dean of the City Colleges of Chicago, so it was the European division of the college. We worked with the military, so it was, we were doing distance education primarily for the enlisted ranks. And this woman took me under her, I don't know how it happened. She just saw something and just, took me under her wing and taught me stuff I still use today, right, as a manager. So you can train them, you can teach them, you can engage them, give them feedback, help them get better, or you have to let them go. The manager-employee relationship accounts for 80% of an employee's satisfaction on the job. 80%. So the reason that you would have managers burning through people is relationships. Right? The relationship is broken. The manager says one thing and then changes over here, and then we do something else, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'll also tell you, please don't quote me on this number, because, you look back at your grad studies, and you just can't find the study anymore, anybody do that, yeah? And something like 76% of the people who are fired from their job are fired because of the system in which they're working, not the person that they are. So if you have an ineffective manager, you have to go up here to decision-making to find out how your organization, if you have not one manager, if you have ineffective managers in general, right? You have to look here to decision making to find out how your organization makes decisions. It could be that there is some sort of a conflict here that your managers are picking up on and they don't know what to do, but they're not sure how to ask you because you wrote it down on paper and it's even on the internet, so they're really kind of confused, right? And if you're decision making, if there's an issue in decision making, you may have a problem or a conflict between your strategy and your behaviors. Did I answer it?
Yeah.
Or fire. Okay. Yeah.
As you asked who was going through this process, and we are at our company now, and there's some talk about hiring A and B players, and I don't hear you saying that, and I actually like what I'm hearing from you. So you know what I'm talking about, the hiring ABC player?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting concept. Many years ago, when I started my kind of world of HR, I worked in recruiting. And I love recruiting, by the way. Fun job. Because you get to talk to people and see what's up with them, and it's kind of neat. There was this idea that a 10 will hire a 9. Excuse me, a 10 will hire a 10. A 9 will hire an 8. An 8 will hire a 7. A 7 will hire a 6, and so on and so forth. So then, when you think about an A player or a B player, who's making that decision of if they're an A or a B?
the hiring manager or?
So is that hiring manager an A or a B?
Yeah.
And who made the decision if they're an A or a B, right? This is an unconscious bias, I think, that a lot of us have. We tend to hire people that we like, that are like us, and that's not always great for business. Diversity is incredibly important in business. And I do mean physical diversity, so women in business. I do mean ethnic minorities in business. I do mean GLBT, right? I mean all types of diversity. Every bit of diversity you can get in your business, you should get it. You should grab it, you should put everybody around the table, because we all have different experiences. The experiences we all bring to the table are just different, which means your product will be better, because we all come with a different point of view that we can offer to be implemented, right? So I worry a little bit about the idea of A players and B players. I think it's a really easy way to talk about the need of quality. What I would encourage you to do, however, is to look back here and say, this is what we're going to do, and these are the behaviors that we're going to need. There are certain technical skills in every job family, let's say, HR, finance, IT, marketing, business development, engineering. There are different types of specific skills we need. And a hiring manager may be able to, if you've got real, a hiring manager who's proven that they're very good with quality, they may be able to assess someone's quality, right? But really importantly, you've got to look at the strategy and behaviors. There's a, I guess you'd call it a poem. Has anybody ever heard of Attitude by Charles Swindoll? It's not Swindle, it's Swindoll. Look it up go to Google, type in Attitude by Charles, and it'll come up. But it's this beautiful poem that basically says your attitude will make or break your company, your church, your family, your community, right? It's your attitude. So an A player could come through with all of these great big technical skills, but have the worst behavior and attitude possible, and that could break your business. One person can break your business, right? So I would look more toward your strategy, your behaviors. Who can actually go and do the things that, have they done it before? Do they have proof, like some sort of past behaviors that show that they can do these things? And how long do you need them, right? This is another mistake that recruiting makes oftentimes today. And in technology, by the way. It's really weird for me when I see this happening in technology, where a recruiter will say, but you weren't 5 years at your last job. I'm like, do you realize how fast the industry moves? Do you get that? Like, are you new? Where are we here? So, anyway, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
We'll take one last question, and Jeremy will be here for a bit, so in case anybody wants to. There's one last question.
Well, my question, I guess, is if you say that hiring, leadership, every one of the engagement buckets bleed into the community, I guess the flip side is, what better recruiting mechanism than that? I mean, wouldn't that be the ultimate to get the referral high up? I mean, not just all, I think me and a lot of people think, oh, negatively, like, what are they gonna say? But isn't that the ultimate best way to get employees?
From your community?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you gotta think about your community too. So there's a local community, and then let's say for developers, engineers, there's also some pretty awesome online communities, right? You look at Top Coder, everybody know Top Coder? It's this online community of 500,000, it's probably like 600,000 by now, plus engineers. And it's a lot of like cloud sourcing kind of competition. Well, they started with competition, I don't think they're doing that much anymore. HackerRank, HackerRank, is that it? There are a few of these businesses that are online communities where you can go and look at someone's code, and they might live down the street, and they got really good code, but they aren't replying, they aren't applying to you, right? So you gotta go out and find the right people, go after the people, use non-traditional mechanisms to do so. Go hang out at the clam bake. Roast, darn it. Go to the clam roast. Oyster roast. All right, the oyster roast, and talk to people. Put your phone in your pocket and talk to people who might be there. Particularly the ones who are like going like this on their phone, because they're probably somewhere around the technology industry, right? Thanks everybody for coming out. This was really fun. I hope you got something out of this. I'll be hanging out here for a little bit if you wanna chat a little bit more.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.